Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets is one of the most obnoxious titles in the last 10 years and is based on the groundbreaking graphic novel that is also of that same title. It's directed by Luc Besson and stars the likes of the charismatic Dane DeHaan, the even more charismatic Cara Delevingne, as well as Clive Owen, Ethan Hawke, and Rihanna. So, before I even say anything about the movie, I really like Luc Besson, for the most part. He directed The Fifth Element, and that is one of the movies that got me into movies. I probably would not be sitting here if I had never seen The Fifth Element. And he is a visual storyteller. That's just how he is. That's the kind of director he is. And it's worked for him for a long time. That's just how he is as a filmmaker. But the problem is, the man should not be allowed to write screenplays. Now, I know me saying that, people are going to go, whoa, what about Leon the Professional? Well, that was like 20 years ago. And when you've made 4 terrible movies in the last 5 years because of the screenplay, you might want to rethink what you're doing. Lucy, The Family, they're awful because of their script. At least Lucy is like visually interesting and it has an interesting setup and an interesting world. Like, there's stuff to grab onto. But this movie has the same problem, and it's that the script is pretty awful for the most part. And there are good things about this movie, because not only is Luc Besson a visual storyteller, what he's known for, what he did in Lucy, what he did in The Fifth Element, he's a world builder. He's someone that can take this completely out there science fiction world and put it onto the screen. That's what he does. That's why he's famous, and he does it very well. That's what works about this movie. The world that we're put in is fascinating. It's so interesting. There's a scene over the opening credits that's the most interesting part of the movie, because you're seeing how this city of 1,000 planets came to be. It's really, really interesting. And then you have all these different alien species that are capable of doing all these different things. They're assigned these different roles. And it's really quite interesting to watch. That's where the movie is at its best, when Luc Besson's visual mind is allowed to pour onto the screen. The problem is where his dialogue mind and his character mind is allowed to pour onto the paper. That's where everything goes wrong with this movie, and that's why I would call it mediocre, borderline not good, because there are things that work about this movie. There are a lot of great visual sequences, great visual action sequences or chase sequences that really work, and they hold your attention, and they're fun, and they're interesting, and they're packed with tension and action, and sometimes comedy that sometimes works. But those scenes work, and they immerse you. You're in this world for a certain period of time, and you sort of feel yourself there, despite the fact that it's a little convoluted. You're welcoming yourself into this world, and you like it, and you're invested into it. That's what works about the movie. But there's potential for greatness here if a different screenwriter was allowed to do something. If a competent screenwriter who understands character development and character setup and dialogue as a whole, you might have a movie of greatness, but you don't, because they don't have that. There's a lot of problems with the script. The first thing is the obvious thing, and it's the characters, specifically the 2 leads, Valerian and Lorelei, or something like that. Not only are they boring characters with no setup or any kind of clear development, they do end up in a different place by the end of the movie, but it's forced. It's never, there's never really any kind of development that's shown for them in my eyes. They're just assholes. You don't like either of them. They're both unlikable characters, in my opinion. And they keep trying to have this romance, and in one way, Cara Delevingne keeps turning him down because he's an asshole, and I'm like, yeah, he should be turned down, but at the same time I'm going, well, you're both assholes, so you kind of belong together. Like, they're both unlikable characters, and I never really found myself liking either of them. Maybe towards the end more, and the movie does get better towards the end. I think it gets better as it goes. It's pretty awful at the beginning, and then has really bad parts as you keep going, but it's more interesting towards the end. And it also does not help that these boring and unlikable characters are played by 2 of the most bland performers in Hollywood right now. I want to give Dane DeHaan a shot, and I know every time I call him bland, people go, what about Chronicle? That was 5 fucking years ago. It was 5 years ago, and I don't really think his character in that was all that interesting. He's fine. He kind of plays a boring person, which is interesting because he's just playing himself. But, like, he's awful in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And when I saw that movie, I was giving him a pass. I was like, you know what? I've seen you do okay. You just got a bad script. But, like, he's just a boring actor. He's a bland actor. Anytime there was supposed to be emotion in his voice, it was just wooden. Same thing with Cara Delevingne. It's like, she's not a good actress. She's in Suicide Squad. She's in Paper Towns. She's in all this shit. And you start going, well, maybe she's not just in bad movies and getting unlucky. Maybe she's just a bad actress. I'm starting to think that both of them are bad performers. They're just bland in this movie. They try and show any kind of emotion, and it never works. Somehow, Rihanna manages to be the most interesting character in the movie, and probably the best performance in this movie, because at least her character is interesting. There's a backstory to her, there's a reason for her to be there, despite the fact that she's on screen for a grand, 15 minutes. I kind of gave a shit about her character, and, I was recognizing the fact that, wow, I'm kind of worried about her. You know, if there's tension, I'm kind of rooting for her. I was never rooting for the other characters. It's an incredibly predictable story. From the beginning, you could guess what's going to happen at the end, and they make the same mistake as Alien Covenant, where they have this chance to make it clear and apparent about what's going to happen before they reveal this twist, and then it's not a twist, so not everyone's going yeah, we saw that coming. They could just tell you outright and you understand what's going on, but there's still this element of whoa, you're watching these characters interact with this and they don't necessarily know, but we do. No, instead, they treat the audience like they're stupid and incapable of understanding certain character traits, and they expect us to be shocked and awed by the ending of this movie, and you're not, because you saw it coming from the first 20 minutes. It's so clear. It's just, right in front of you, and if you don't grasp onto it, I don't know how you didn't. The dialogue in this movie is just amateur. There are lines that are so screenwriting 101, textbooky, gross lines that they say, and you go, ugh. I didn't think they were writing that kind of shit anymore. I thought we had learned that we could do more than that we could actually have thoughtful, thought-provoking, interesting dialogue. But I guess not. Not with this movie. They don't do that with this movie. They just kind of say shit. There's a certain point, throughout the whole movie, these two characters, Dane DeHaan is I'm going to take you to a beach. I'm going to take you to a nice beach. And at a point in the movie, they end up on a beach. And they both kind of look at each other. And instead of having this nice tender moment where they both just look at each other and smile and the audience gets it because we're intelligent, they have Cara Delevingne go, didn't you want to go to a beach? And you're just what the fuck? You just took us completely out of the moment. It's so irritating because there's so much potential for a good writer to come in and do something with this movie, and there's no saving it when Luc Besson is behind the computer writing this thing. And the storyline is pretty meddled. There's a lot of convoluted shit that you're trying to wrap your head around and go, wait, so this connects to this and this. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of conflict that spawns out of thin air that it feels like this movie drags on longer than its runtime. I think it's a pretty long movie, and there's just so much conflict and so much unnecessary shit popping up that you're okay, I'm done, just stick to the main story. Felt like a fucking video game at times, and that's not good. Sure, you can get away with that kind of shit in a graphic novel. I've never read the graphic novel. I'm sure it's really good, but it probably didn't adapt too well. I don't know how much Luc Besson took from that graphic novel and how much was his own shitty writing, but there's, for me, no denying that this movie is completely anchored down by a bad script and bad characters and a poor storyline. Yes, there are interesting visual things about this movie that I liked and I found interesting, and the world was fascinating to me, but the story, script, and characters constantly were bogging you down and making you go this. There's so much room for a good writer to just come in and do something with this, and you never get that. I wouldn't see this movie. See Dunkirk. Dunkirk is great. Get around to it. It's out right now. See it in IMAX. It's honestly just as thought-provoking as this, with almost just as good visuals, for a different reason obviously, but it's just, see that. Don't see this. I wouldn't. If you're gonna see it, fine, you know, whatever, but it's not very good, and I wouldn't recommend it, unfortunately, and I wanted to. So, what did you guys think? Did you see Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets? Did you not see Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. This is a new camera. I'm trying it out. I hope it looks and sounds nice. I do have a microphone attached to this thing. I was using my built-in audio with the other camera, so I'm trying this one out to see how it'll go. So let me know what you thought about the quality. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.